You're welcome back. The Trans-Niger pipeline, a major pipeline capable of transporting about 180,000 barrels of crude per day, has been moribund since mid-June, and that's because of theft. Even though the pipeline is yet to be formally shut down. In June, Mr. Gbenga Komolafe, the Chief Executive Officer of Nigerian Upstream Petroleum Regulatory Commission, said that Nigeria lost at least $1 billion in the first quarter of this year because of oil theft. According to him, an unusual level of thefts estimated at a daily average of 103,000 barrels recorded last year had grown to 120,000 barrels in the first quarter of this year. Of course, the country is losing, and that's why we had that conversation last week about the excess crude accounts that has been depleted because nothing seems to be going in there. Well, let's delve into that now with Noel Okwedi, Senior Energy Analyst with STARS. Hi, Noel. Good morning.
Hi, good morning. Thank you for
Yeah,
having me.
yeah. Sorry about your name. I hope I got it. Okwedi.
Noel Okwedi.
Okwedi. Thank you so much. Noel Okwedi. All right, so help us to understand the picture with this Niger pipeline that is dry. What is that?
Okay, so the Trans-Niger pipeline (TNP) is a pipeline owned by Shell, and it's one of the major pipelines that Nigeria owns. It transports 180,000 barrels per day, and it has about 150 tap points. So tap points are like where you can divert the flow of crude to another pipeline. It's for operators. But now, people that steal oil have started using those tap points to divert crude for their own means. And by the time it gets to the export terminal where it's supposed to be exported out of Nigeria, there's nothing left. And so that's why we're saying that the pipeline has basically dried up. So operators that are transporting their oil through that pipeline are not getting value for their oil anymore. And right now it's still open, but it will soon be shut down. And that's what we're
Yeah.
dealing with right now.
Okay, it's still open, but obviously not functional from what you have said.
Yes, exactly. Not
Mm.
functional.
So those points where you say it's supposed to serve, is there no way it can be locked or something?
Well, if you lock it, then that reduces how much oil it's transporting. So it starts from somewhere in River State and terminates at Bonny Terminal where it's exported from. So different companies or different operators and producers along the line can put in their oil and then it gets to Bonny Terminal. But if you start shutting down those tap points, it just reduces the operations of the pipeline and renders it ineffective. But that's where we've gotten to right now because the theft is just unimaginable.
Yeah, and we keep hearing the government talking about efforts to curb oil theft. And we've also had conversation as to stealing of oil. It's not a mere man's job. So you need to be a professional. You need to have idea and skills in that line to be able to do that. Should we be suspecting, compromise from within the system?
Exactly. That's the thing about oil theft, especially at this scale where you're stealing hundreds of thousands of barrels per day.
120,000 barrels a day. That's a lot.
Exactly. That's a lot. And it's not something that any ordinary person can just do. And even if they could, they had the skills. Getting that oil out of Nigeria is not something that anyone can just do because that level of theft is being exported. So that oil is not just within Nigeria or being illegally refined as some of the barrels that are stolen are. Some of this oil is actually exported illegally. It's getting on our waterways, getting on ships, and getting out of Nigeria. And people are earning money from this. So at this level, it just does not make sense that people with means and people in authority are not aware or even actively involved.
So maybe we're talking of the will, the political will. I think that's the way we like to call it in Nigeria. Because, I mean, they can't be hidden. They're not ghosts.
Exactly. I'm sure there are people that people know, and you might even be surprised if we hear the names of these people. So, yeah, the level of theft is just it's just not something that ordinary Nigerian citizens can carry out on their own.
Mm. And then they said one of the motivation for this theft, as you have mentioned, that most of this stolen oil is sent outside the country is because when we look at our neighboring countries, the prices, the price there seems to be higher than what it costs in Nigeria. So because of that, there's a motivation. Once you can just get it out of Nigeria, then you get a higher price for it.
So that applies to petrol. So that's what happens with petrol. But with oil, oil prices are determined internationally. So whatever, it depends on the grade of oil that you're selling. But for petrol, that's definitely the case. So because in Nigeria, we have a subsidy where we're paying 175 now, naira per liter. And in neighboring countries, they're paying as high as 400 to 500 naira. Obviously, there will always be that incentive for people to smuggle petrol out of Nigeria. But for oil, oil prices are determined internationally by forces of demand and supply. So that motive, but the motive is also there because right now oil prices are high everywhere. So, like you said in the news briefing, oil prices have been above $100 per barrel since about March when the Russia-Ukraine war started. So there's that higher motive for theft because people that are stealing know that they can export it and get prices as high as $100 per barrel for each barrel of oil that they are selling.
Mm. And also with this scenario now, is there any hope for our excess crude accounts?
Yes. So the excess crude account is supposed to be the difference between the budgeted price of oil and the real price of oil. So the budgeted price of oil is currently about
65.
$74 per barrel. And the real price, like we've said, is over $100 per barrel. But the problem there is that our production, like we said, because of theft, is so low that we're not realizing those gains. So right now, with oil prices above $100, we're supposed to be saving more, saving our excess crude earnings. But just because of that production shortage, we're not seeing that impact. And for hopes for the future, well, we just need to deal with theft. That's the truth. We need to deal with it because it's ruining a lot of things for the country, from our revenue earnings to even state earnings. Because our oil revenue is a major source of revenue for states to pay salaries, carry out capital projects. Even the ASU strike is still going on because there's a money problem where the government can't meet the ASU's demands. So we really need as much money as we can get right now.
Yeah, we need as much money as we can get. Then there's the issue with Seplat that has diverted production to the Amope Focado system, which is mostly underground. Why and what impacts should we expect from this?
Yeah, so Seplat is Nigeria's largest indigenous oil company, and they had issues with a pipeline that they were using before. They had higher than planned downtimes. What that means is that pipelines usually have times that they're supposed to be maintained, but because of theft and vandalism, the pipeline was down for longer than it should have been. And in Q1 2022, Seplat actually recorded lower oil production because of those downtimes. Even though their revenues increased by about 70%, that was just because of price. In terms of their actual production, that actually dropped between Q1 2021 and Q1 2022. So to prevent that, they've had to move their production to another pipeline, the Amupe pipeline. And because that pipeline is mostly underground, the hope is that it won't be as accessible to vandals and for people to tap in and steal. So they'll be able to avoid those higher than planned downtimes and also keep their level of production stable.
So with all of this now and this not so friendly looking environment, we have some local players trying to get into the system, oil fields being allotted. Some international, I think some IOCs have left the scene also, and we're supposed to be celebrating the involvement of locals. But can they handle these challenges that we see? Will they be able to make profits and stay in business?
Yes, that's a big factor. So the marginal oil field rounds that were just concluded, we saw about 57 licenses being offered. And the thing about the marginal field licenses is that marginal fields on their own, they don't produce that much oil. So they produce at most like 10,000 barrels per day. For these companies to actually get financing to even produce the oil is another hurdle that they have to go through. And then you now have this added issue of vandalism and theft that they have to deal with. I think that any company that is able to make it through will really be a strong company, because it's really not an easy time to operate in the Nigerian upstream market. And also all these issues of vandalism and theft just scare away investors. Like you said, IOCs have left, are trying to leave. Some are, they're actively like selling their assets and selling and divesting from Nigeria's onshore market. So for these companies coming in, it's going to be hard, number one, for them to get financing to invest and actually extract the oil from the fields that they've won, and then even to deal with to get, because you also need financing to get, like for Seplat, for example, that we've just said is diverting to another pipeline. That's money that they're spending to sign new contracts and divert their routes from their current route. That's going to cost money. So for these new oil companies that are coming in or trying to get into the market, it's not going to be an easy one for them at all.
So while we celebrate them, I guess they should know what's lying ahead for them.
Exactly. Exactly.
But the PIA doesn't help in this, in dealing with this oil theft. The PIA doesn't.
Okay, so the PIA deals with theft in an indirect way. So it says that's why the host community bill is so key there, because the PIA kind of assumes that host communities are the reason why theft is so rampant. So the assumption is that when the host community fund comes in, the host communities will now have a source of income that will prevent them or remove that incentive for them to steal and vandalize oil equipment. But like we've just discussed, the kind of theft that we're seeing, I doubt that any host community, any member of any host community has the resources to carry out this level of theft and then export oil to other countries and earn revenue for it. Like that's like another country. That's actually like a country's operations that we're putting on a community, and that's not possible. So the effectiveness of the PIA is in dealing with oil theft is shortened because of this. I don't know if it's an oversight, but yeah, that's just the situation there.
Yeah, well, guess this is another hurdle we have to, face in the country if we want to move on and deal with our excess crude accounts or even make the most of the potential in the oil sector. Thank you so much, Noel Okwedi, Senior Energy Analyst with STAIRS. Thank you for sharing your thoughts with us this morning.
Thank you so much for having me.
Let's move over to the markets now, beginning with the equities market. Yesterday was just one day, and we celebrated almost 1.5% increase in the all share index, and then we were down yesterday. It opened the first day of the first month bearish. Investors sold off Bois Cement, lost more than about 10%, and the all share index declined by 0.83 to close at 49,950.30. Losing that 50,000 level there. Accordingly, the month-to-date and year-to-date returns printed 0.8 and plus 16.9. And there we see the volume was in red, declined by 30.9% to 176.05 million, valued at 2.27 billion naira. Deals were in red, but I tell you that's more of sell-off, so almost 5,000 deals yesterday. GT Coal was the most traded by volume. The banking sector still, still catches the eye of investors. Yesterday, we see that GTCO, Zenith Bank, and Access were the most top trades yesterday. And so you see the banking counter was in the positive yesterday, 0.19%. Consumer goods was down. Industrial goods, more than 4%. That's that Bois Cement we talked about. Insurance was down. Oil and gas was flat yesterday. As measured by market breadth, market sentiment was positive as 18 tickers gained relative to 13 losers. Carverton and Cordvale recorded the most significant gains of the day, while, as we said earlier, Bois Cement was the top loser for the day yesterday. Yeah, there you go. Top trades, GTCO, Zenith Bank, and Access Co. But it was a mix there. GTCO gained, Access Co lost yesterday, but they brought the counter to a positive close at the close of trade. Now let's go to the fixed income market and the money market and see what happened yesterday. The overnight lending rate contracted by 450 basis points to 10.5% in the absence of any significant inflows into the system. The Treasury bill secondary market traded with mixed sentiment, but it was bullish as the average yield contracted by 1 basis point to 7.7%. Across the curve, the average yield contracted by 1%, 1 basis point in the short, 1 basis point in the mid, and that's due to buying interest under 10 tenure. There, the OMO, we saw that there were only 3 deals valued at just about 3 billion naira yesterday. All right, I think we'll take a break now. When we come back from that break, we'll head to London and find out what's going on with Juliana. So stay with us. This is Business Morning on Channels Television.